A Light in the Darkness Chapter 52, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. The room was filled with dense and silent tension as the Imperial throne room only had 5 people within it. No longer was there an entire company of Custodes within the throne room with Sisters of Silence arrayed around the massive hall to dissipate any chaos influence, but the sheer psychic might within the room burned brighter than the Astronomic after an influx of powerful Pyskers. Trajann had no doubt that, should even a demon Primarch or any other greater demon appear within this hallowed hall, they would be instantly immolated under the golden gaze of their sire, that was fully back in the flesh and more powerful than ever before. You both disappoint me. Especially you, Lion. The true God Emperor of mankind spoke with his voice rumbling, and Trajann had to steel his soul at the force of the sound waves that came from the ascended Emperor, who had become a divine being without a doubt. The filth of orcs, tyrannids, and chaos tears through the Imperium without pause, and you decided to take a 10,000-year-long rest. The room was silent as the Emperor stared at the template for all the Primarchs that came after him, with the lion being the first he made oh so long ago. In penance for your failure, you will take control over your legion and destroy the core of Hive Fleet Leviathan before returning to Terra. At his order, the first Primarch and leader of the Dark Angels bowed his head before he turned to leave the throne room, but before he could, his Gene Father spoke again. Take forbidden weapons with you from the holdings of your legion. For the Tyrannids are the greatest threat to this galaxy beyond even the Necrons and Chaos. The Emperor spoke almost softly, but the lion and everyone knew he wasn't speaking with affection or care for his son. It was merely cold pragmatism that came from him as he knew the Dark Angel subsidiary legions and the guard they would take for this expedition wouldn't be enough to actually purge an entire Hive fleet, or as the Emperor demanded, merely break its core so the Hive tendril would break apart and be more manageable. After the newly awoken lion stepped out of the hall, the Emperor stared ahead, seemingly into the Empyrean, with his metal gauntlet-covered hands tapped across his throne before he looked to his more favored son for his intelligence and capability of actually solving issues without breaking every world and population he came across, like the majority of his brothers would end up doing. Guilliman, I have a most important task for you beyond conquest, slaughter, or reorganization of the Imperium. The Emperor spoke slowly as he visibly chewed on his words, and Guilliman likewise visibly focused as hard on his Gene Father as much as he could with beads of sweat coming to his sculpted brow as neither he nor anyone else had seen the Emperor so torn on what to say. On the planet of Pandora X-79, there is an apostle, a part of me that reincarnated, or possibly even a natural-born son of mine that help me take my place and fully ascend from a perpetual and into a god of the material world, similar to the Cetan of old. The God Emperor stared at Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, and spoke ever so clearly. I have felt the corruption of chaos and other forces converging upon him, so you will take Sisters of Battle, Silence, and with the assassins from the Officio Assassinorum with you. And you are to encourage Jake Barris to take his place back here on Terra as the official demigod of the state, as my old position. If he utterly refuses, you are to mitigate anti-human influence on him while I work on bringing his entire planet to the Sol system. Even Trajan's perfect control over his body and mind faltered at his master's plan to just drag a planet and its star across the galaxy in order to bring one person closer to his influence. And should he be hostile to the Imperium? Guilliman asked stoically, and the Emperor in response grunted as he seemingly stared past his son into the warp, probably performing some kind of miracle with his new powers that allowed him to summon his legion of the damned with impunity across the galaxy. He has already taken in human disciples to teach his new ways of power that only touches upon the warp to devour it cleanly, and his ways were the spark of my ascension, so I am clear to its effects as he is also anathema to the warp as I am. Then the Emperor's eye actually twitched, and the Custode captain flinched at the sight, wondering if something important had happened across the galaxy under the God Emperor's watch. But then he continued to speak, and the golden-armored man had to hold in his own flinch at the words his master spoke. If anything, you two will get along with your shared interests in taking a lover from the Eldari. Actually, with Inari's growth as a god, perhaps a marriage alliance between you and Ivrain could be worth it, as I am capable of becoming the god of the Eldari as well, with my power being capable of greatly harming Slaanesh and then fighting other chaos gods for a short while. The Emperor considered aloud with his trusted custodian Captain General, holding in his thoughts and bodily reaction to the thought as Guilliman's own reaction to his father's words was clear as day, being complete astonishment at his words. But Trajann Valoris knew from the depths of his mind that the God Emperor was actually considering the logistics of taking over as the spiritual god and leader of the Eldar, as with the slaughter and devouring of the Eldar gods by Slaanesh. He knew that the Emperor had a decent chance of actually accomplishing his goal, and he personally didn't care if his master became the god of the Eldari, as his role as his lord's greatest tool was merely to assist in his designs. My assassins are poised to be used at your design, Emperor. The leader of the Officio Assassinorum spoke as he bowed his cowled and covered head, and the Emperor nodded before he spoke. Have your assassins go to the Tau territory and acquire the blueprints and use gravity platforms to steal their factories and their general weaponry before distributing it to the Mechanicus with orders to change the production of the Guard standard Lost gun to the Tau, pulse fire, and miniature railguns. The Emperor spoke, and the Custodes couldn't help but think of how the Mechanicus was likely to rail against making Xenomade weapons, but as he thought that, the Emperor's head turned to look at him, and the eyes of fire seemingly burrowed into his own eyes under his ruby-colored visor. They will comply, as I will be paying Mars a visit soon enough. The God Emperor spoke with some resignation, and then he waved a hand as he sat on the burnt golden throne that barely survived his ascendancy. You all go on about your tasks now. He ordered with Guilliman and the head of the Officio Assassinorum bowing their head before leaving the throne room with the Emperor's eyes of flame closing as he clearly meditated on his unknowable thoughts.